Bore da, good morning. Welcome to the Environment and Economy Overview and Scrutiny Committee. And the first item on the agenda this morning is the appointment of chair. And at the annual meeting, Council determined that the Labour Group will chair this meeting. The committee is advised that Councillor David Evans is the chair of the committee for the municipal year. So I will hand over to Councillor David Evans. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning, members, and welcome to this committee of the Tuesday, 10th of June, 2025. And we move on to agenda item 2, which is appointment of vice chair. Can I have a nomination for vice chair, please? Councillor Pearce?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Councillor David Coggan as the vice chair of the committee, please.
Councillor Coggins-Cogan?
Thank you, Chair. I was on Health and Social the other day, and we had the sort of appointment or election of vice chair. And before it went to vote, the candidate did speak in sort of acknowledgement of their nomination. And I just think we should be doing the same as well. Just for people who may be watching online, I think it's a good idea for them to they can see why people are voting for Councillor Healy or voting for myself. So just, I think like a little candidates manifesto for a second, I think would be useful. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, everybody happy with that? Okay, well, if that's the case, I don't have a problem with that. So maybe Councillor Coggins-Cogan, since you were proposed first, if you'd like to give us maybe 2 minutes. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. It's just to explain why I've sort of been nominated. I have chairing experience as the vice chair of a national charity. I've been on this committee since I was elected. I always read my papers and I contribute on nearly every report. And that's about it. It's just so I think people at home can see why we're in this position, why members vote certain ways. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Healy, you've been proposed. Would you like to give a...
Thank you. I welcome the opportunity to say a few words, particularly with Niall Waller in the room, because I'd like to thank him for all the experience I gained when I was the cabinet member for climate change and economy, because I basically got a crash course in the economy of Flintshire and was able to visit all the main businesses in Flintshire. So I think I do have a handle on what goes on there. And as far as the environment is concerned, that is embedded in my DNA. And I'm constantly liaising now with our Access and Natural Environment team. It's something that's very dear to my heart.
Okay, thank you for that. I shall take a show of hands, firstly for Councillor Coggins-Cogan. Those in favour? I can see 4. Thank you. Councillor Healy, going to show of hands there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 to 4. Okay, that's Councillor Healy. Congratulations, Councillor Healy. Okay, moving on to agenda item 3, apologies.
Thank you, Chair. So we've had one substitution, Councillor Gina Madison for Councillor Richard Lloyd. Thank you.
Okay, agenda item 4, any declarations of interest, including whipping declarations, to receive any declarations and advise members accordingly. Councillor Shallcross. Councillor Shallcross, you're on as a committee member today. Sorry, what you're saying then?
Yeah, I've substituted the person.
So you are actually the member. Just remind members, if you do want to substitute, you do need to let the officers know before 10 o'clock. Otherwise, your substitution won't be valid. Okay, thank you. For future reference.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to agenda item 5, the minutes. To confirm as a correct record the minutes of the meeting held on the 6th of May, 2025. I'll go through them page at a time. Page 5, 6, 7, 8. Councillor Coggins-Cody.
Thank you, Chair. At the top of page 8, which is the leftover of paragraph 100, placemaking plans of Buckley, item D, to review the positive and negative influences of past council decisions and to consider what lessons might be learned from the future. That was resolved by this committee. However, the former cabinet member, decided not to present it to cabinet. So can we add that to the forward work programme then, please, and as we have already resolved to do it?
Sorry, these microphones. Can I bring in the Chief Officer?
Yeah, good morning, members. Thank you for that. I mean, what I would say in response to that is that the impacts on town centres, the influences on town centres and their viability or not are often as a result of decisions not taken by the council. So I would question the value in doing that, which could be quite a significant, well, not could be, it would be quite a significant piece of work if we're going to go back and review all decisions on the viability of town centres. I struggle to support that proposal given the scale of the team and the amount of work that Niall's team, and I'm sure it will focus on Niall's team, will have to undertake in terms of rolling out the placemaking plans, etc. So I failed to support that as an officer, really.
I've got Councillor Dolphin online first, and they'll come back.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I do agree with the Chief Officer. It is always mainly good to have a review and try and learn from the past and to give you a good guidance for the future. But in this case, with the economy team being so small, and they are virtually self-financing as well. And when Karen Whitney-Lang was here, the regeneration manager last time, she gave very good explanation to all the questions that were asked. And yeah, is it the council's fault that all the towns in Flintshire struggle at times? Not all of them, but they all struggle at times, like towns throughout the country. Because what applies in Flintshire applies all over the country. There's a number of things that will be that will not be helping towns prosper and thrive at the present time, and a lot of that is to do with the way we live, all of us, the internet, etc. The council does what it can with the cash and the grants that become available, and they are constantly applying for grants as well. It's not always the council's fault. If you can give us an example, perhaps, of where we can learn a lesson that is down to purely to the council, that may be a guide. But I would agree with the Chief Officer at the present time. We haven't got the capacity to do a full review of the past when we need to be looking to the future, and the grant money that's becoming available will need to be spent and improve the towns that we have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Dolphin. I've got Councillor Bithell next.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Councillor Coggins mentioned the previous cabinet member. I don't know whether he's referring to me, because it was actually an item under Councillor Chris Dolphin's portfolio aspect. But I did make comments at that meeting, because, of course, I said, if I remember, that hindsight's a wonderful thing. It's a pity we didn't have it beforehand, because it would probably stop us making some of the mistakes that have been made. But with regard to that, again, current thinking plays a very strong part in this. And there were trends at that time, not just here in Flintshire, but elsewhere in the country, for particular proposals like pedestrianisation. It was the thing. For example, at one particular time, out-of-town shopping, large shopping centres out of town. were very much the thing at that time. I am an old colleague of mine who was a Liberal Democrat, incidentally. He'd actually been to America. We had relatives there. And I'd seen what had happened to town centres as a consequence of those particular types of development occurring on the outskirts of towns, where you had the donut effect, nothing in the middle, and all the shopping on the edge of the town, which caused the ruin of town centres. So in a way, I welcome the fact that I'd seen the future and didn't like particularly what I'd seen. But nonetheless, certain decisions had been made by that particular stage, even in this country and in this county and in the districts that preceded them. And, you know, okay, we've learned the lessons hopefully from that, and we're rolling back on that now. But the other thing is too, in all those particular developments, there was public consultation. Local authorities, be they district councils or county councils, consulted with the public. And, you know, there was a widespread support for those particular developments at that time. So it's very easy to try to dump all the blame on certain individuals or councils, but there's much more to it than that. And I think to actually go into all those particular details would be an exercise we could do without, really. Yeah, we all make mistakes, and mistakes have been made, but they were fairly widespread and fairly general at that time. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. I've got Councillor Coggins, Cogan come back, and Councillor Pearce. Which one of you wants to go first? Councillor Pearce?
Yes, thank you. I think we're in danger of undermining the decisions we make in this committee, because if you look at page 7, this was a proposition put forward by Councillor Andrew Parkhurst to review the positive and negative influences of past council decisions and consider what lessons might be learned in the future. This was democratically seconded and democratically voted, and it says there that this was carried. And under resolved, D is to review the positive and negative influences. Yeah, that's the wording. Now, Councillor Dolphin talks about we don't have the capacity to do that. There was an opportunity when this was resolved to add the words subject to capacity or any other incumbents that might stop this, but it didn't come forward until now. So the resolution is there, passed by this committee, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Coggins, Cogan?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Pearce has somewhat stolen my thunder, but that was the exact point I wanted to start with, was that broadly everything that we've heard is academic, I'm afraid, because the committee has already decided upon this. We've already made a positive choice to take this course of action. Whilst I'm sympathetic to what the Chief Officer has said, I do think that what the Chief Officer is looking at is perhaps more than what is contained in the actual resolution. The Chief Officer talked about looking at all the reasons for the decline of town centres and that type of thing. The proposal is about the positive and negative influences of past council decisions. So we only have to limit ourselves to those sort of council decisions. One of them would be, in my humble opinion, the closure of public conveniences at the cost of £60,000. I think that is going to have a very serious negative influence, and that's something that we should be looking at and finding out what the consequences are. Also, the second part of the resolution, to address the points of Councillor Bithell and Councillor Dolphin, what lessons might be learned for the future? I mean, while some may have sympathy for the reason that the internet, etc., being the downfall of modern society, I think as people in this chamber who are meant to make decisions and make decisions based on evidence, the internet, etc., isn't really good enough. And I think if we have a report compiled that we can actually look at, avoid mistakes of the past. I mean, it's very admirable that Councillor Bithell has acknowledged the mistakes of the past. I think if we were to ask each member of this committee, we would all think of a different mistake of the past that's happened, unless we have some sort of report where we can look at and decide, you know what, yeah, that was the big mistake, we have to avoid that in the future. That was a little mistake, we don't have to worry about it for now. I think, that's what I believe. But I have to go back to the point, as advocated by Councillor Pearce, we've already made this decision. This is now simply about implementation, not about making the decision again.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Healy, you put your hand up.
Thank you. I can understand where Councillor Cogan is coming from in his desire to have this retained, but I think it's legitimate to try and review it in the light of Mr. Farrow's comments, because I think with the other factors for which the council is not responsible, internet buy-in, as was mentioned, the development of retail centres and changes in customer habits. So many factors are interconnected that I think it's difficult. It would be difficult to pinpoint and isolate what effect individual items have had, including things that may have involved the activities of the council. It's probably too complex an issue to actually pinpoint what impact we have had, either positively or negatively, because of the interrelated nature of economics.
Can I bring Margaret in?
Yeah, just to say, they were recommendations from this committee going forward to Cabinet, because it was a pre-decision report going forward that went to Cabinet. My understanding is that the recommendations were discussed at Cabinet. I think Councillor Dolphin, you might want to confirm that was the case. The other option from this committee's point of view is if you feel you want to put it on the forward work programme going forward, and that it is good use of officer time on the committee's time, and maybe we could consider that.
Councillor Dolphin?
Yes, it was certainly noted that there were recommendations from the Environment Committee and to the Cabinet, and it was considered that the most important thing at that time, and now as well, is to get on with the placemaking plans for Buckley and get them implemented, and the future towns that need to come along. There's a major work involved with the placemaking plans. There's Queensferry, there's Mould to come. Shotton and Holywell have already got them. So at Connors Quay, that there's a great deal of work to be done and a great deal of money applied for and will become available, and that needs to take priority virtually over everything else for such a small team that I say is virtually self-financing as well. And what are these mistakes that the council seem to have made? Nobody's still given me any examples of it's the council's fault this has happened. Purely the council and nothing else. Banks, post offices, pubs, is that the council's fault that they've closed and been moved? No, it's not the council's fault, is it? And as Councillor Healy says, sometimes there's a cross-section of areas that there's reasons for things changing. And there's always public consultations. One thing the council is very good at is having public consultations. So the public are normally invariably involved with any decision that happens. If we go back a number of years, Holywell High Street, it was pedestrianised, and now it's not pedestrianised, thank goodness. I never did want it pedestrianised all those years ago, and a lot of other people didn't, and it failed. It's better that it is not pedestrianised. But as Councillor Biffle said at the time, it was the sort of thing Britain was doing. It was pedestrianising areas. So I could understand it happening at the time, although I didn't agree with it. That wasn't the council's fault. There was various public consultations and the public wanted it at that time. So it does become very, very complicated. We can see from just this discussion we're having this morning how complicated and in-depth this review would be. And it's something that would be perhaps a good thing to do in the future, but what would actually be the benefit of it all these years later? And as I say, we still haven't got the exact examples of this is the council's fault. And if it is the council's fault, tell us what it is and we can rectify it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dolphin. Okay, Councillor Madison.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, this is a declaration of non-interest. I live in Groningen, but I actually shop in Prestatyn over the border. It's our nearest town centre. It's an excellent town centre, and over the last year or so, I would say that a good half dozen of the shops, small shops on the high street, which I use, have closed. We lost every bank during COVID. The owners of the shop, my favourite shops which have closed, have told me in all cases that the main reason for closing was lack of footfall. And they acknowledged that they had received excellent support from Denbighshire County Council and Prestatyn Town Council. So I do urge, and it may already be too late, I do urge people to support small shops wherever you can. Thank you.
Okay. We moved sideways on that one. Then Councillor Coggins go.
Thank you, Chair. And I promise it will be the last time I speak on this item. I've given an example of what could have been a negative, and a decision that can have a negative influence. Also, for some reason, everyone so far has just focused on the negative influences. The first, the third, the fourth word and the first descriptor is positive. So you can look at the positive, implement the positive upshot of council decisions. This isn't just a negative exercise. Also, if the cabinet member for, I can't remember what is the cabinet member for, Councillor Dolphin, he could speak to Councillor Bithell. Councillor Bithell has just accepted that there were mistakes have been made. So if he wants a comprehensive list, he can speak to his former cabinet colleague and get that list. So we can look at the positives. As I have to agree again, I think we are in danger of undermining our own decision-making processes if we make a decision 1 month and the next month we decide for some reason we don't like it and we go down a different route. I think it's a very dangerous way of operating. Just finally, I don't think, as is my habit, we can't have the penny and the bun. We can't say, well, no, it's too late to look at the mistakes of the past because that's happened in the past. And at the same time, well, actually, it's too early to look at the mistakes in the future. We haven't made them yet. At some point, we have to have some sort of retrospective of mistakes and good things of just the council decisions and see how they've influenced town centres. That's all it's saying. It's not a big comprehensive review that's going to take up hundreds of hours of officers' time. And I think it's been, I don't know why, but perhaps deliberately blown out of proportion. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. My understanding would be that our recommendations go to Cabinet and they will either accept them or not accept them or make any amendments or changes. So they've obviously discussed this and decided that that's something they're not taking forward. That doesn't mean you can't then come to the forward work programme on the next agenda item and then maybe put something similar. But I would suggest that maybe what you've heard, we narrow that down to maybe a town centre or something that obviously taking into consideration that it's a mammoth task. And where do we start and where do we stop? Maybe we need to narrow that remit a little bit. Okay, Councillor Pearce.
Right, thank you for allowing me to come back, Chair. I think in the situation that's just been described where 4 resolutions are put to the Cabinet, it would be useful to have feedback from the Cabinet as part of a report or part of an agenda item to say that the committee passed these to the Cabinet, they've accepted 3, but they've not accepted the other one, and this is the reason why. We would then understand. I think from Councillor Dolphin's request about mistakes made, I have a list here which I could tell Councillor Dolphin, but I think it's inappropriate in this meeting to declare those. There may have been reasons why these mistakes were made, but they are mistakes, and I don't think we should debate that. We'd look at the minutes. We're not here debating that. But in request to Councillor Dolphin, tell us what these are. We can do, but this isn't the forum for it. And I think that we should have an agenda item which gives feedback from the Cabinet as to whether they've accepted them or not accepted them. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Palmer, I believe you wanted to come in.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As somebody who's run a business in Holywell High Street for over 30 years, were mistakes made? Possibly in the past, but I would not criticise their mistakes because, in my opinion, decisions are made on the information at the time. And hand on heart, I don't think anybody wants to make a mistake, a decision that's a mistake. They think it's right at the time. The pedestrianisation of the street was heavily criticised. But as has already been stated, when that was implemented, that was the sign of the times, and that was what people were doing, and that was the information you had at the time. So to look at mistakes in the past, I think we should be more concentrating on what's happening in the future.
Okay, thank you for that. Just to say, we are confirming the minutes are correct and I think they are correct, even though you've raised your points on it. So I don't think there's anything further. You've got something else on page 8? Councillor Coggins, go.
Thank you, Chair. Item 102, in the first bullet point paragraph, on the start of the second sentence, it's second line rather, it's a peer review, not a clear review. And just to briefly say, no one's talking about criticism of the previous item. It's not about criticism. It is about learning lessons. And that's why it says very clearly positive and negative influences. You know, it's if you can't just look at the light and you've got to look at the light and the shade together. And for some reason, this committee only wants to look at the shade. I don't know why.
Okay, thank you for that correction on page 8. Any other items on page 8? Page 9. Okay, and so with that correction from clear to peer and comments noted, thank you very much. Okay, we'll show of hands that those minutes are as read. Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 6, the forward work programme. If I hand over to Margaret.
Thank you, Chair. So if you look at the forward work programme, the 8th of July, we've got the annual performance report and the year-end performance report for the council. We've got the corporate risk register. As a third item, the update on Bailey Hill. I have been discussing this with both Tom and Niall, and we feel that the best way forward with this is to have a site visit in the autumn. There isn't a lot to update on the actual Bailey Hill project right now, but actually a site visit would let us see what's going on there and have a feel for the place rather than just talk about it. If that's acceptable to members, then we will arrange a site visit in the autumn. Is that something that members would be happy with?
Yeah.
Generally, yeah. No, yeah, good. Then we've got the coastal access barrier update. That's in July, and then the annual status report on the illuminated signs and street lighting will be coming to that meeting as well, and also the update from the school transport. There are a lot of items to be added, and we are looking at those, and they will be put into the forward work programme. We do have the dates now, obviously, for the meetings coming up from September onwards, and we will be putting those. We will be populating the forward work programme for the next few months. So at the next meeting, there will be a more comprehensive forward work programme going forward for the rest of the municipal year. So if we move on to the action tracking, which is on page 19, the first two are clearly ongoing. So we will be looking to get the LAEP report, the local area energy plan, that is on our radar. So when we do have information available, then Alex will be bringing a report on that. Corporate risk register. I think that is still ongoing at the moment, but the information will be with you shortly. The request for the regional car parking partnership, they will be hopefully coming to us in October, and that will be from the regional car parking partnership. That's obviously not something internal, so we're asking them to come, and then it'll be. They don't have to come to our scrutiny committees, but hopefully they will do. So we will see how we get on. And then the winter maintenance, that one will be included in the winter, the broader winter maintenance, which will be on the forward work programme. Karen is working on the breakdown of the 168,000. That should be with you very shortly. I think it's in final draft, so that should be with you very shortly. And that has been amended. That's completed now. On the number 6, and over the page, the terms of reference, again, they will be with you very shortly. And the final one, there will be a report coming back at the end of the calendar year, and so that's on the forward work programme. Just one other thing, we did have an excellent visit to Wepper Park last week. We had a really interesting biodiversity. I don't know if any of the members want to just say how you felt about that and whether you feel such site visits are worthwhile. We had one to Parc Adfer as well, which unfortunately wasn't well attended, but there were quite a few of the members of the committee there last week. So does anybody want to? Oh, we have Councillor Richardson with his hand up. Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, my question was about something else actually, but thanks for giving me the moment. Could I request an update on where we are with weed control, please? I sent an email to my street scene coordinator on the 19th of May, which he duly forwarded on to a member of his team on the 25th of May, and I'm still waiting for a reply. So I remember our chief officer previously telling us about the reasons that we were trying to stop using glyphosate, and there was trials with foam and different things, but we were assured that this year that we had the quad back in action and we would not make the same mistakes we made last year by, June, sort of July, having knee-high weeds everywhere, and that's exactly where we are at this moment in time. So I'm just wondering if there's anyone who could give me an update, please. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Richardson, we're dealing with the forward work programme at the moment. Can I ask that you contact the chief officer outside of the meeting to get an update on your area, please?
Yeah, I will do, Chair, but it's not just my area, it's everywhere I look in the county.
Okay, but we're still dealing with the forward work programme at the moment, not doing individual ones on that. So, Councillor Pearce.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like consideration of an item for inclusion at the September meeting. I'll give my reasons now. We're aware that there's a review of 3 weekly bin collections in January. However, every week since the 28th of April, when the 3 weekly bin collection started, I've had to email, phone, or report online the missed collections. We never had this on this scale prior to the introduction of the 3 weekly bin collections on the 28th of April. I accept there have been big changes. The weekend working has changed. But I think that we should have a look in September at the statistics for the missed collections. The September meeting would cover May, June, and July. And I think that we need to have a look at this. The reporting process needs a review, and I don't think we should wait until January 26 when we review it in the round, so to speak. So I think that we should have a look at this. You only have to look at social media, and from my own experience, as I say, every week, I don't know whether it'll be again today because that's our bin day. It's changed from a Wednesday to a Tuesday. But I think that we should have a look at this, just the missed collections part in September, to have a look at the statistics and what we can do to improve the reporting process. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Pearce. I'll bring in Chief Officer.
Yeah, I haven't got anything to add. That's absolutely fine. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that's good. We'll with that in update. Councillor Cogan. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. On the 8th of October 24, there was a request made for the strategy for public conveniences. At the time, it was minuted in the following meeting that that would be dealt with in the new year, presumably 2025. On here now, that's jumped to January 2026. I think we need a report much sooner than that. It would be my preference for that to happen in September. However, I can see the chief officer's, terror. So I'm not going to ask for that, but I would ask that it's given much more urgency, only because I know it doesn't affect that many people, but the people it does affect, it affects them very greatly. So if that can be brought forward, that would be very significant. I also had another issue I wanted to put onto the forward work programme, and that was about the protocol of members speaking to officers about collections. But I've spoken to the service manager, Chris Goddard, and I'm not going to make that request yet, but I just want the request just floating in the ether, so I can sort of use it at some other point. And I think that's everything from me. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, sir. Well, firstly, can the toilet come forward, and the protocol of member officer relationship?
I've just mentioned it. I've just mentioned that I've spoken to the service manager about it, so I'm not putting it on the forward work programme. I just wanted it out there as, that it might go in the future.
Sorry, if I could just come in on that one, that would be a corporate issue. It would affect all members, not just this committee. So that would something that would be needed to be taken through corporate resources.
Right, yeah, sorry, local toilet strategy. I'll see whether we can bring it forward. The reason we put it for January is because of the anniversary. I think it's set in legislation when we review it. So we last reviewed it in January 2024, and we're required to review it within, I can't remember the dates, but 2 years of that. So that's why we put it for January. So we'll have to come back to you and check if that's okay. But I mean, in terms of capacity, there should be no issue from our perspective. It's just that the legislation sets the frequency for the review, but that's no problem. Just, Chair, if I may just mention as well, Chris has just reminded me, we've put some member surgeries together at the end of this month. I think the last 2 Mondays of the month. Chris will confirm the dates, and the first Wednesday of July, to come in and actually speak to us about any concerns you have around miscollections within your wards. So we're repeating if you remember in the lead up to the service change, we ran those member surgeries for 2 days at that point, and we're repeating that exercise really. So anybody who wants to come in and see us, please do. We'll get an email round to all members, but that's an open invite to everybody. But there'll just be drop-in surgeries for you to come and visit us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank the Chief Officer for that response. If the strategy is in legislation to be reviewed every whatever the period is, I'd be surprised if it prohibits a review closer in time. And if it does, we can call it something else, an update, progress update or something like that. I'm just mindful that at the budget, we removed that budget funding for those conveniences. So I'm fairly ignorant as to what's happening to them at the moment, and that's what I'd like an update on. And then also, in the context of what we do for, because I know there are some businesses, not many, I know, but there are some who are prepared to allow people to use their conveniences without sort of buying things. And I think we need to tighten that up. So thank you to the Chief Officer, and also thank you to the Service Manager, Chris Goddard, because he mentioned the surgeries to me. I failed to mention in my response, but that's why I'm not adding it to the forward work programme, because I'd like to see how they pan out first. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Rose.
Thank you. It's good to hear the the missed collections are going to come up because it was a rarity, and now it's certainly not in my ward. I didn't get my hand up quick enough about the biodiversity event. We did learn quite a lot from it, but it was supposed to be all members that we put forward. And that was one of the things we wanted to put back on the agenda, that it was for all members, because there was a lot of things in that a lot of more members should know and understand.
Yeah, we did, as you know, we did agree that at the biodiversity briefing session, we did say that we would go away and set a date in the autumn for all members to benefit from that information. And there was some information there about the weed control as well, and that the biodiversity actually came from, I think it was in January when we considered that report. That's where the actual briefing came from. So yeah, we are looking to set a date with Sarah in the autumn online, so that all members can have can benefit from that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And just to add that the biodiversity workshop was very useful, very interesting, and weed control did get brought up on that and the glyphosate situation. So maybe if we can have that meeting in 1 or 2 months, if possible, and that would probably address some of Councillor Richardson's concerns on the issue of weed control as well. Okay, Councillor Banks.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just on the weed control, first thing is it is important to note that the council took the policy of not using the glyphosates. So as there's nothing else on the market that actually does the same job as glyphosates, but what we do use doesn't kill the birds and the bees, which is, so it's to some extent that there's always going to be a little bit of a compromise for the fact that it doesn't work as well as the other stuff. So it's but yeah, everything's in place out there, going out with the machinery, spraying and cleaning up. I believe they've done through towns and on the way through to other areas once they've completed them. But I think I've said enough on that one. But I've got to defend our corner a little bit here on the recycling, because in all honesty, the recycling figures, I don't think they've ever been better, to be honest. I mean, we're having pockets of, and obviously Councillor Pearce, you've been in touch with me quite a few times, as has Councillor Coggin, and so there's little pockets but it's a period of change. So there is always going to be, what I do liken it to is, and I'm going to mention Prestatyn Tesco's here again, because that's the one I use alongside Gina. You go into the Tesco's in the morning. I mean, ours in particular, the meat is all in the first aisle. Now, for whatever reason, there's a massive pile of people around there. So you decide, I'll go around the next aisles and I'll come back to get the meat. And then for whatever reason, something else happens. You get to the checkout and you're going out the door and you remember, I've forgotten to get me beef for my sandwiches. And that happens sometimes. You get vehicles in the wrong way, people report them incorrectly. There is definitely some issues with the reporting of, I think Councillor Ellis reported about the fact that online you can't report more than one, which makes it very cumbersome. You know, the process is ridiculously laborious for councillors to do it, but these will be ironed out as it goes along. But can't release any official figures yet, but the figures generally overall for the whole of Flintshire are staggeringly good, to be fair. Are looking, you know, they're looking really, really good. So some of it ties in with the fact that we had a massive council tax rise, so there's a little bit of a backlash. But to be fair to the residents of Flintshire, they've all worked with us fantastically well. You've got little tiny pockets here and there where there's issues with the fly tipping, but generally overall, the whole situation is going really, really well. And it's a case of, as Councillor Coggin mentioned before, negatives and positives. There is reviews with it. The positives at the moment are fantastic, because we simply have to reach this 70% target. That's, you know, we've got to get there, and this is looking like it's pointing us really, really well in that direction. And just on the toilets, I have to declare an interest because one of them's actually in our ward. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Can I just ask Margaret now to, if you possible, summarise what we're actually adding there? Or shall I give you my best bet of it?
Where Katie's going to go back and have a look at what the whether or not it is feasible to bring the report back on the public toilets earlier, depending on the guidelines around that. The other one from Councillor Coggins-Cogan around.
So I've got them.
We've got them, all right.
Missed collections
Yeah,
to come in September.
Yeah, we've got that one, yeah.
And the biodiversity meeting to be rearranged for all members.
Soon, yeah. And hopefully in the next couple of months.
Okay.
You will see as well. You will see as well. There are quite a few items on the items to be added that are listed to come through in September. There's a few of them. Duty of care, that's likely to be September now. And the winter maintenance, that's due to come in September. So we will need to fit in what we can in September. It does already look like a busy meeting, so we'll work with the chair and the officers to see what's the most important stuff to bring forward on the agenda. As you know, the Climate Change Committee, the new committee that's been formed, that there will be some items coming forward from that as well. So we are going to need to prioritise what's important for the forward work programme, what is going to make a difference going forward. We need probably to have less reports that are for noting. We do need to look at items that actually we're adding value to the process. So that's something we need to concentrate on going forward as well as a committee. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So moving to the recommendations with obviously the comments noted on page 11, 3 recommendations. Can I have a mover and second it? Moved, seconded. Now a show of hands, all those in favour? That's carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item 7, which Sharon's going to, no, I'm going to kid you, Sharon. Niall's going to lead on. So over to you, Niall.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, members. So we're going to just give an update on the Communities for Work Plus programme. I think this report was requested by the committee, so I'm hoping you'll find this useful. Just to repeat the introduction, introduce Sharon Jones, who's the manager for the programme, who's here to contribute as well. The report just provides a summary of the work of the programme, work of the team, hopefully highlights some of the work they do, and also provide some case studies just so you get a bit of a feel for the human impact of the programme. Communities for Work Plus was established in 2018 by Welsh Government, and it's delivered through local government across Wales. The report sets out the eligibility for the programme. So, it's predominantly for people who face significant barriers to entering into employment. So people with disabilities, people from different ethnic backgrounds, young people who have not managed to get into employment, education, training, and so on. So this isn't for those who find it easier to get into work. This is for those who face significant challenges. It's important to say it's a voluntary programme. There's no compulsion on anybody to join the programme. It's entirely up to them. And so the work of the team in engaging people is always important to make sure people are aware of the programme and aware of the opportunities it offers. And obviously we get referrals from a wide range of different agencies, including the Department of Work and Pensions. In terms of delivering the programme, it's very much centred around a mentor team. They develop long-term supportive relationships with unemployed people. They help them to action plan to reduce their barriers to employment. And they help them to enter the workplace or other settings. That could also include learning or voluntary opportunities as well. The service also provides very employer-focused training as well. So they offer short learning opportunities to people who are ready to enter the employment market, focused on specific employment opportunities. So it might be working with a particular employer to provide the learning that will help those participants to actually access that opportunity. Or it might be more generic. So, for example, working with on something like, let's say, the care sector, where there's always a lot of vacancies, and making sure that people have got some of the tickets they need to enter that sort of employment. The programme also provides funding as well. So it will cover, for example, the participants' childcare costs, equipment, transport, and so on, just again to try and reduce the barriers that make it hard for them to enter the workplace. It's important to say as well that the programme is very much delivered in partnership. There is an active ongoing relationship with both Careers Wales and the Department of Work and Pensions. and also with other teams, like, for example, our business development team. So when opportunities come up, the different teams work together to try and make sure the local people get the best opportunities they can from those employment opportunities. Specifically, as well, the service does work with employers, and particularly also with the council's own supply chain, to try and make sure when we are letting large contracts, we work closely with those large employers to make sure that local people get the best benefit from that. I think Sharon will touch on that a little bit when I hand over to her in a second. It's important to note as well, the team is 100% funded by Welsh Government. It's not a council-funded team. It's funded entirely by Welsh Government. So we don't have a wider employability or skills function as a council. The report does note as well that the service faced a significant reduction in scale in 2024-25. The budget from Welsh Government was reduced by almost a third. The impact for that is still working through. I think it's fair to say it has reduced our capacity significantly, particularly in the mentor team. It means that we do less engagement, and at the moment that is more or less manageable. But caseloads for the mentor team inevitably have risen significantly, and it's something we have to manage very carefully going forwards. We haven't yet had to turn anybody away, and we hope not to have to, but it is always an ongoing risk. The report also notes that it's important to be aware that from 2027 onwards, Welsh Government is planning a review of employability services, and we don't know and have no clue at this point what that may look like for the programme. That may be that the programme ends at that point and they bring in something new. It may be it's managed in a different way. We have no way of predicting that at this stage. So we just want to alert you to that as something on the horizon that we need to keep an eye on. I'll hand you over to Sharon just to talk a little bit about the case studies and some of the live work that the service does, and then happy to take any questions after that, if that's right, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Niall.
Buttons on, ready to go. Thank you very much, Niall, for that. Firstly, I'd just like to make sure that all the members are aware that there's an open invitation to come and see myself and the team at any point. We've got 3 hubs which are up and running across Flintshire. They're in the report: Holywell, Connors, Key and Flint. They've been up and running since April this year, and actually quite well attended. So all members, please feel free to call in and see the team or myself if you've got any queries. Also following on from what Niall said, we do have a really close relationship with contractors, especially building contractors who come through to Flintshire. One example that springs to mind is the refurbishment of Theatre Clwyd, and we've also worked with Wilmot Dixon in Flint as well. We've done a recent event with the theatre, which was really well attended. It was in Mould, and we've actually got a meeting with the theatre next week to roll that out across Flintshire. And that was for volunteer opportunities and for staff to gain employment within the theatre. Out of the first event that we had in Mould, there was 8 recruited into the theatre up to now, and also people who want to do volunteering in the theatre. So we are moving forward. As Niall said, we have had a few hiccups, as in some major cuts through Welsh Government, but I can assure you capacity at the moment. We have a team that we did have 15 people. We now only have 7, but we do spread ourselves across Flintshire as best we can. And as I say, we welcome if anybody wants to come in and see us and meet us and find out a little bit more about what we do. You're all more than welcome. Thank you. Any questions? Thank you.
Councillor Bithell.
Yes, thank you. And I'd like to thank Niall and Sharon for the report. It's very interesting. You know, we've been told, I think, time and again, nationally, I think there are 1 in 8 of the people of working age who are not in employment, and that is a significant figure. And again, far surpasses those of other developed countries in the West. So it's an issue we've got to really deal with. And again, we're well aware, I think, of issues where, you know, people, for whatever reason, are not in work. And this is a very valuable programme, obviously, and it is working, has worked well. I'm just wondering, I think Sharon mentioned and Niall mentioned that we're dealing with volunteers here. Do anybody actually direct, you know, people, for example, who are unemployed to the unit for this particular help and support? That's one question. And secondly, you know, is the programme tailored to the individual, or do they all get the same kind of treatment, as it were, and support and advice? That's another question, if I may. Mentions have been made of the numbers of members of staff. It was 15 in 23-24, and it supported 255 individuals, of which 97 have found employment. That's 38%. I'm not sure whether that's a significant good figure. It looks pretty good, but I mean, I'm just wondering how this equates with other particular programs elsewhere. Have we any knowledge of that? And I'd like to know too, do we keep any record of those people who are still employed a year later? Not just got a job, they've been there a few weeks and then lost the job, whatever reason, or left the job. Again, mentions made in the report of the 16 to 24 year age group, the over 50s. I'm just a bit concerned about those in between, the 24 to 49. Is there an issue there that's not being addressed currently? And if so, why not? And again, I think Shannon's probably covered the point in terms of local employers willing to engage with us in this. I think they're given evidence that is the case, but I mean, some of those are the ones we would probably expect to be helping, like theatre fluid and so on. I'm just wondering about the general employment market. Are they willing to take on these particular individuals? The other thing that I'm concerned about, again, is highlighted in the report, that when we take on staff to do this work, this important work, at the end of the day, because of cuts in the programme nationally, we end up having to pay the redundancy costs. And that's a worry. And again, I think we've raised this in the past, Chair, because of course, given our financial circumstances as a local authority, and again, the same is true of others as well, this is a huge encumbrance upon us. And I'm just wondering, is there a figure of what we actually have had to pay out so far, really, in terms of redundancy pay? Because I think we need to keep that in mind as well, and continue to actually pressurise Welsh Government to support this programme, quite rightly, to actually cover those particular costs as well, so they don't impose an impact upon local authorities like Flintshire. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sharon, do you want to?
Hi, thank you very much, Councillor. We do support everybody who comes through the door as an individual. That's whether they're 16 or whether they're 42. Each individual has their own issues, their own concerns and their own needs, so they are treated on an individual basis. We say 16 to 24-year-olds because we can bring in additional support for 16 to 24-year-olds. We work really closely with our team within youth service to see if there's any additional provision that we can support. But age doesn't really come into it for us. We will support any individual. The only reason that we do stipulate certain ages is that we can bring in different support from different parts within the local authority, but everybody's treated on an individual basis. We do work with large employers and we also work with smaller employers. I have to be honest, we're really fortunate in Flintshire, and we're only the one of the local authorities out of 6 in North Wales that actually have a skills steering group. And we've had that implemented for a number of years now. And on that steering group, we have our colleagues from the business team, we have our colleagues from the Department of Work and Pensions, and we also have Careers Wales. So between us all, we meet on a regular basis to see what's coming into the county, if we can support any large employer, small employer, medium-sized employer. And if we can, then if that employer requires a specific number of staff, then we can put a pathway on to maybe support that employer to get the right staff. We've had examples of that. We've done obviously Wilmot Dixon, we've done big contractors, but we've also recently done Kimberley Clark, the redundancy event at Kimberley Clark. So we do deal with a number of employers, and we deal with small employers, and we deal with large employers. They come to us, we sit down, we discuss their needs, and we discuss whether we've got people who are actually part of our programme who are ready to be at interview level and have got the skill set for their particular company. So yeah, each individual we treat individually. Regarding redundancy costs, this was back into with Welsh Government. I don't know whether we can get some numbers.
I mean, redundancy costs, as members will be aware, is an ongoing issue with short-term programmes. It's a corporate issue. It's not just this service and this programme. Every time we take on a short-term funding programme, no matter who the funder is, we find ourselves in a position where inevitably we end up paying redundancy costs. That's just unfortunately a fact of life. And yeah, it's one of those decisions when we're deciding whether to take on those programmes that we have to bear in mind, unfortunately.
We have a figure for that, Chair. I did ask, do we have a figure? If not, I'm dropping this on the officers, but perhaps we could even be informed of that, because again, it's a very worthwhile project, this, and one we should be engaged in and are engaged in, and happily so. But again, it does come at a cost, a significant cost to the local authority at a time when we're not in a good position to meet those additional costs.
Okay, I'll bring in the Chief Officer.
Yeah, it's interesting that you raise redundancy costs, because that's the origin of this report. If you remember to council last year, we had to make some people in the community's first team redundant, and because of the process, it ended up at full council. It was a very small number of people, but because it the 100k figure for the whole package, they had to go to full council, and it was on the back of that and people not being aware of the Communities for Work Plus team that we worked through this report and to give the team's work more visibility. The purpose of bringing it here is to give that visibility, because really we would like, and Sharon might not thank me for this, but we would like the councillors to be advocates for the service. So if you hear of somebody in your community who fits the criteria for this, contact Sharon and the team, acting on behalf of that individual and linking them up into the Community for Work Plus team. So just to come back to the detailed question about costs, in terms of people we've made redundant, you had that at the council meeting last time, if you remember. We could work up in theory figure if we had to make all the team redundant. We could do that if you wanted, but I'm not really sure it would have a great deal of value, because actually we're trying to deliver on the ground. What I would say is that it's amazing what Sharon and the team have delivered, because they've actually lived a hand-to-mouth existence for over a decade now. And Sharon has had the really unpopular task around Christmas time of putting all the staff on notice because they're not certain that the money's going to come through in the next financial year. Now we've had a little bit more certainty about that in the most recent past, given the fact that it got pulled for some of the projects, but you haven't had to deliver that awful Christmas card over the past few years, have you? So that's what's driven the report, Councillor Bithell. Redundancy costs, giving visibility to the team, and it's actually the same for the next report as well. It's about visibility of a team that does a lot of good work behind the scenes, really, and you being the councillor group who could actually be advocates for that team and this team as well. So hopefully that's helped.
Thank you. Sharon, do you want to come back?
Yeah, thank you. Just on a positive, obviously it's been explained we've had issues with funding, but on a positive note, I really would like to say that from March this year until the end of May, we've had 30 people into employment. That was just at last count. Now, those 30 people, that has an impact on everybody in your communities. So that has an impact on people's families, how they spend their money. It has an impact on people's confidence. So I think, from such a small team that you have within the local authority that is completely funded 100% through Welsh Government, I think, 30 people just until the end of May is a real positive. And the feedback that we do get Councillor Bithell, from people who are in employment. Our guidance says that we now can't support people when they're in employment, but from our team and our mentors, we do actually still keep in contact with a lot of people, just so if they ever come out of employment and we can give them additional support, then we try and help them as best we can. We do only have a small team, 4 mentors, 1 employment lead, 1 triage officer and myself, and we do go around the county and we don't turn anybody away who fits the criteria for our Communities for Work programme. They may only need a light touch, they may only need someone to help them with a CV, but some people obviously might have anxiety issues or might be, long-term unemployed, which takes real intense mentoring. So I think it's a credit to not just my team, but it's your team as well to say that they really do work hard on the ground. So thank you very much. But if anybody wants to refer into us, the details are all there for us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have Councillor Coggins-Cogan.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank Niall and Sharon for the report. And then Sharon obviously spoke a bit more than Niall, being the manager. I want to praise you for very obvious passion on delivering the programme. I think it's, you know, it's very infectious. Thank you for the invitation to visit the centres. I will test that to destruction and sort of turn up as often as I can. You know, the report reads very well. I was sort of particularly impressed that you do help your individuals gain soft skills, punctuality, body language, appearance, social skills, and adaptability. In my previous career, I was told, and I know none of the committee will believe this, but I was told regularly by the judges to, quote, get my bloody hair cut. So I think that's really impressive. You know, by that point, I was already firmly enmeshed, so they couldn't get rid of me anyway. But I mean, when I used to be on interview panels for new pupils, the test that I always had in the back of my head was the snowstorm test. If I'm going to be trapped in a car with this person in the middle of a snowstorm for 7 hours, am I going to rather be outside the car because it just drives me insane? I think so much of that is about soft skills. And I think schools, because they have to retreat to their statutory obligations and get kids through their exams, they're not able to give them enough sort of social skills, and smiling makes such a big difference, you know, not being so grumpy, you know, that type of thing. But, you know, it's obviously easy for me to say on this side of my exams. But I want to thank you for the work that you do. I think it is incredibly important. You obviously produce great results, you know, between March and May, you've got 30 people in, you know, that's fantastic. There is someone in my ward who wants a bricklaying apprenticeship, so I will be in touch with you, Sharon. So yes, I was very impressed with the fact that out of the 6 North Wales authorities, you're the only one with a skills team. I think that's sort of great foresight and working with partner organisations. The case studies were very interesting as well. Now, being on this committee, you know, the clue is in the name. We are a scrutiny committee, so we have to look behind the report, I'm afraid. Yeah, sorry. But that does sometimes mean that the committee, sometimes me, always sounds negative, and it's not that. It's just that we need to learn what's going wrong so we can make sure you have all the support to go right. So can you think of any case studies that have not been as positive as the ones in here, but have led to something that you've learned from, or you've able to sort of spin a positive, whether if it's not for that particular individual, it's been for the program as a whole, for the next individuals? Again, I'm not looking for a bad news story. I'm looking for how we're learning our lessons. And it seems that it's overwhelmingly a positive report. And so that's, you know, that's the only tiny negative I'm looking at. And I would like to move the report, Chair, but I would like to replace note. I think that's what it says, isn't it? Yeah, I'd like members to note and support the progress made.
Thank you very much. We do have individuals who we take on a journey, not necessarily into employment, but their journey may be to do some volunteering or maybe just to gain additional skills, whether that is soft skills. I don't think really a lot of people put so much importance on soft skills. Well, we do, because we do realise, you know, the benefits of it. We do have participants who come in our programme. They come in our programme for a number of reasons, and whether that's genuinely just a tick box exercise to say to DWP, I'm trying to find employment, and we can take them as far as we can. You know, we can do the softer skills, we can engage with, you know, building their confidence, but actually at the end of the day, sometimes that just doesn't work with us. And because the capacity of the team, we have to realise that quite early on. So what we do is we do 3 main interventions. Now that's the initial meeting. We always try and meet somewhere, you know, convenient for the participants. And then we obviously put a plan in action of what they want to do. But after the 3rd time of us trying to contact them or take them on that journey, if that participant doesn't want to go on it, then we have to just hold our hands up and say, I'm really sorry, our programme may not be for you. And we're quite open about that. But then if that person a couple of months down the line thinks, you know, actually, I do want to go on that programme again, it was beneficial at the time, then we'll always welcome them back. So there are instances, and you're correct in saying that there are instances, it's great us giving us case studies of everything that works, but occasionally our programme doesn't fit. And we have to be realistic with that, because A, because of our funding and due to the capacity of the team. So there are occasions where we have to exit people from the programme, or we have to say that we've taken you on that journey as far as we can, but feel free, the door is always open. So yeah, thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Sharon. Councillor Mike Pearce.
All right, yeah, thank you for the report. That's very positive, but we are scrutiny, so I just dig down a little bit if you don't mind. How many council staff do we have supporting this programme? And does the funding for the staff come out of the funding for this programme? Because the resource implication says that it does not generate any significant costs for the council's core revenue budget. So do the costs of the staff running the scheme come from the funding by Welsh Government, or is it? So, okay, so I see a couple of nods there. So the £551,000 for 24-25, 100% will not be into the programme for these individuals. Part of it will be to pay for the staffing cost of the council. Okay, that's fine. So I agree with Councillor Bithell, 38% have found employment. That's just a fact. I'm not going to discuss whether that's good or bad. So for those who haven't found employment, is there a reason why? Have they sort of been on the course and then thought, well, thank you for all the help and advice, but I think I'm okay now and I can go my own way? For example, under the executive summary, it talks about fully funded training and the vocational qualification support. Now, when we're talking vocational qualifications, we're talking about going on a course and getting a qualification at the end, because it may go beyond the period of the particular year they start. So would that continue until they get their qualification? And once they've got that, is it a case of, well, thank you for that, I've got my qualification, I can go elsewhere now, I don't need any further help? You provide financial support for clothing and what Councillor Buggins-Cogan said. In the situation where you mentioned about redundancies, Councillor Bithell touched on that, and the Chief Officer, how many are actually employed within the County Council now? And I saw the case study of the person going into the building. That's good, because, you know, that's a very important trade to be in, and you've given someone the opportunity. And I see this is about giving opportunity that may not have been presented by simply going to the Job Centre Plus, because what they would say is, well, I'm sorry, I can't help you because you don't have the skills. Nobody really would be interested, but you get them ready, don't you? So that's good. So I'm just interested the costings to run the scheme, and also what happens to those who haven't found employment. That's not a negative. There may be reasons behind that. Thank you.
Hi, thank you very much for your question. Regarding if anybody comes onto our programme, as I've said, we treat them as an individual. They may need some softer skills. They may need some skills maybe to... I'll give you an example of softer skills. We work with Costa Coffee. They were opening some stores across Flintshire. So we worked with Costa Coffee. We brought in some barista training. I think it's very interesting is what you said, Councillor, is that a lot of the softer skills are the smiling when people attend and how you're presented. Those are extremely important. So we worked with Costa Coffee. We put a barista course on. We actually completed that in Flint, in Mould, sorry, because the venue was suitable. And then they went on to be employed within Costa Coffee. But before that, we made sure that we'd done interview skills. We made sure that they were confident enough to go for the interview. What we don't want, and what we really wouldn't do, is put any individual on a programme or a pathway, whatever you want to describe it, that they're not ready for, or they don't feel that they're ready for. So, as Niall said before, it's a voluntary programme. People can come and go as they please. I think that's actually our unique selling point, is that we are voluntary. You know, you don't go into the job centre and have to come onto our programme. So that's just one example for the softer skills. Another one is that we've worked over a number of years with contractors. So we've worked really closely with our teams within the local authority. So if there is a new build, whether it's a school, whether it's an extra care facility, we've worked with the contractor to see if we can get people employed on site. And we do a lot of the construction cards, so the CSCS cards, to enable people to go on a building site. But before that, going back, we would work with that person really intensively to make sure that that's the right thing for them. Often people say, oh, my friend's on such a building site, so I want to do that. So by the time we've done a couple of interventions with that person, we find out that that's not actually what they want to do. So we can backtrack on that and find actually what that individual would prefer to do job-wise. But although the job outcomes are really good, it's also working with everybody who's on our programme, specifically to find out what their journey is. So as I say, the job outcomes are great, but also the good news stories about those people who've been on our programme for over 12 months. We have people who are over 12 months who just haven't gained the confidence yet to go out into the workplace. So there's no cut-off date for us. If you join in April, there's no reason for us to say, 1st of April next year, that's it, you've had X amount of funding, or we took you as far as we can. If there are reasons why you haven't found employment, then we'll have a look at that and try and address it.
Right, okay, thank you. If you don't have the information now, I did ask about the cost of the service, looking at 201. There are no significant costs for the council, but if you could advise how much it is costing the council to run this scheme. I'm not being negative, I'm just asking the question. Yeah, so interesting, if I can just come back from what you mentioned there. So if people do present themselves to the job centre and they don't have those skills, interpersonal skills and that, will the job centre automatically signpost them to this organisation? And for 25-26, how is the funding looking? Is it better than last year or stayed the same, or what's the situation there? Thank you.
Chair, if I pick up the first part, and I'll hand over to Sharon for the second part. Just to confirm that the programme is 100% funded by Welsh Government. That includes both the staff costs, which, given it's a mentoring programme, is the bulk of the cost of the programme, plus also there's associated costs for training and other support for participants. So in terms of 2.01, the only unfunded costs really, I suppose, those unquantifiable overhead, office costs and similar that are quite hard to claim for, and redundancies, as has already been discussed. Otherwise, the programme is 100% funded, and the 7 staff that deliver the programme, although they're funded by the council, although they're employed by the council, are 100% funded by Welsh Government.
Sorry, can I comment? We have a really good relationship with our colleagues in all the job centres across Flintshire, and we ensure that we visit their comms meetings on a regular basis, so they're always updated. So all the teams always updated as to where we if we have any additional hubs in the area, we make sure that our colleagues in all the job centres are aware of that. So yeah, we have a really good relationship. We're very fortunate in Flintshire. We have a really good relationship with our DWP colleagues and our colleagues within the local authority. We'll know about our funding later on this year for the following year. But this year we got 551 as is in the report.
25, 26,
yeah. 551. Yeah.
Right, sorry, Councillor Pearce, is that your question is answered?
Yes, the government funding was 551,000. So what's the funding for 25-26?
It's the same, bar about £1.40. Thank you. Yeah, sorry, it's as close to £1.40. Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And next on the list is Councillor Healy.
I applaud this report. I think it's really positive. I think it's very much a good news story. And I'm wondering actually if you're actually thinking of bringing out a press release about it. I think there's a lot of good stuff in here. I applaud the close working relationship you've got with local businesses. Obviously, the report mentions Theatre Clwyd, and I'm really pleased to see Theatre Clwyd, in which it does in so many ways, reaching out to our communities across Flintshire, and Costa Coffee as well. So it does mean that the people you're engaging with are getting real life work experience and learning from it. But I would hope that maybe a statement to the press might help to raise awareness amongst those people who can avail themselves of the service. And I think it is an achievement. You said you've got 30 people back into work, and sorry, I've forgotten the dates, but it did seem like it's an achievement. And I also think that given the key risk that exists for this, which is whether or not there will be continued core funding, I think it's useful that our members of the Senate know that we value the service and that it is playing an important role for those people in Flintshire who need it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Madison.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Neil and Sharon, for a lovely report. I really enjoyed reading it for a personal reason. I'm the volunteer coordinator of the Child Growth Foundation for North Wales. And we do, in fact, try and help our members into sustainable employment. We have members from Ynysmon to Wrexham, from babies to ladies in their 70s. So I will be taking up your invitation to come and see you and visit the hub, because I think this is something that our members would be very interested in. A couple of questions then really on that. The first thing is that some of our members have had very poor employment experiences, which is to do mainly with bullying, inappropriate workplaces, and in some cases even being sacked. And in those cases, I have actually been to unemployment tribunal all the way up to Cardiff with them, and they have generally won. I'm thinking here that because you're talking about tailored working, that they are protected in that way, because there are physical and mental issues, obviously, with the types of employment that they can do. And secondly, my question is, many of our members have been on short-term work programmes, usually with names like Brighter Future or Looking Forward. What they're really interested in, and these have given them brilliant experience, I do have to say that, our older ladies in particular, who are now looking to work till they are 67 due to the rise in the state pension age, are looking for sustainable employment. Do you have a focus on sustainable employment as well? Thank you very much.
Yes, we do. Thank you very much for your question. Yes, we do. And we will welcome anybody to come and see us in the hub. Bring your ladies along. You know, we can chat to them, talk to them, you know, through our mentors, find out exactly their needs and their requirements, and we'll try to help and support as best we can. If we can't help, we will be really honest, but we should be able to signpost to the relevant organisation who'd be able to help a little bit better than ours if they need some more intense mentoring. But please feel free, come along and speak to the team. We welcome you.
Do you want to come back?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to say thank you very much. I will be in touch, and I did want to add that we do have male members as well with conditions such as Russell-Silver syndrome. It's just that I work more with the female members, but I will certainly promote this to my Flintshire members, and I'll be in touch with you. Thank you.
Okay, I just have one more. I'll jump in because this person's having another bite of the cherry, but I again, as has been said, very good report. I just have one little thing, one little niggle in the report, and that's top of page 24, and the line, despite turning 60. You know, despite turning 60, MW was fit and healthy. There's a sort of presumption there that, and statistically, you might be correct, but I just find that a little bit, so I'm not sure any future reports might remove that sort of terminology.
Not my words, I'm sorry. Do apologise. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Coggins-Cogan.
Thank you, Chair. And that's some advice for the officers, always play the chair, not the committee. So It was just, I had this written down, but I couldn't understand my writing earlier on. I think I was only aware of this programme via, as the Chief Officer mentioned, it going to the full council. Would it be an idea to have a very light annual report to this committee in the future, seeing as, you know, you've had 30 people in the space of a couple of months? I think, you know, it doesn't have to be a big report, but just like a light report, maybe 1 or 2 case studies, something like that, to come to the committee annually, I think would, as Councillor Healy has mentioned, it will give us more strength to our elbow when we sort of hector our MSs saying we need the funding for this programme. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I'm more than happy to take that forward. Thank you.
Okay. Anything further? No members online? Andrew? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I didn't see you there.
Thank you, Chair. Years and years ago, when they closed Points of Ayr Colliery, amongst others, I was always of the opinion then that it's best to pay a man or a woman to work as opposed to not pay them. So you subsidise that job if you have to. I'm not saying this subsidises jobs, but this is one of the building blocks that's probably in place to try and help with things like that. So it's very disappointing, but understandable, but disappointing that the Welsh Government did cut the funding for it, which obviously because it cuts the numbers down that you can help. And despite that massive cut to the funding that you've had, Sharon and Niall and your team, I think you've done an absolutely fantastic job in what you've done. It really is a good news story. Getting getting anybody back into the workplace when it can be so much easier for some people to not get in there. It's a fantastic achievement. Just one quick question: is the figure 97 at 101, is that in addition to the 30 for March to May, or is it all one? Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's in addition. The calculations were from the 1st of April this year to May, and it's just a rough calculation. Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll move to the recommendation on page 21. Councillor Coggins-Cogan, you've wanted to make an amendment to members to note and support the progress made. And do you want to add there that the communities for work are invited back as an addition to that recommendation? Yes. For everybody's, okay, can I have a seconder? Seconded, with a show of hands, all those in favour? That's unanimously carried. Thank you very much, and thank you for that report. Okay, we'll move on to agenda item 8, which is the domestic energy team, and I'll hand over to Niall.
Thank you, Chair. Very similar in terms of this was a report requested by Scrutiny. Introduce Joe Moxlow. Joe is the manager for the housing regeneration team and will be contributing to the update as well. So again, the report just provides a quick highlight of the work of the service and just again provide some case studies and what it does in human terms. As has already been mentioned during the previous item, it is a self-financing team. It's not core funded by the council at all. Income is generated from the services it provides. Predominantly, those services are for the council's HRA budget for work on our council housing stock and with our council housing contract holders. But we also work with other clients, and at the moment they predominantly are Denbighshire County Council and Wales and West Utilities. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. The report talks through the various programmes that the team works on. In terms of our support for the HRA team, the Housing Revenue Account Service, as you would expect, that is very much focused on reducing energy consumption for our contract holders, reducing the risk of fuel poverty, and also, you know, in this day and age, reducing carbon use in our housing stock as well. And the report, particularly under 1.04, just provides a bit of a summary of the work that is in practical terms. And you'll see there that's insulation, that's high efficiency gas boilers, that's solar PV, air source heat pumps, and so on. And you can see the scale of the investment that's going in through the service in terms of, you know, the sort of cash that's being spent. And yeah, to note that there are, you know, it was, for example, 515 energy efficiency boilers in a year, which works out, I think, about 10 a week, which is an enormous amount of work being undertaken. The report talks also about energy performance certificates, and just want to highlight the importance of those. They provide a monitor on the performance of our housing stock. They're a requirement that we report to Welsh Government on how our housing stock is performing. But they also enable us to model our housing stock to understand where interventions need to be made and where we need to target investment. So they are critically important, and courtesy of the work of the service, we now have 91% coverage of up-to-date EPCs for our housing stock, which is an extremely high level at a Welsh level. So it doesn't mean that our modelling of our council house performance is extremely high. In terms of other services, we have a dedicated energy advice officer, as well as a team of staff who dip into that, all of whom are qualified to provide professional energy advice to households. Last year, they supported 452 households with energy advice. You'll know with the cost of living increase and the energy price increase that the households are under more pressure than ever in terms of affording their energy bills. So this service is a growing demand on the service, and it's one that we've invested in to try and make sure that we meet that demand as best we can. EcoFlex is highlighted in the report. This is a private sector source of funding regulated by Ofgem, and it enables qualifying households to receive discounted energy efficiency work from contractors. Our role is to check the eligibility. We are asked by Ofgem to provide that function. It's also important to note we don't have any role with selecting the contractor or for the work that those contractors do. That's a direct relationship between the householder and the contractor themselves. Last year, in Flintshire, we supported 879 households to access that funding. It's also important to note we also deliver that service for Denbighshire County Council as well. So we also support residents in Denbighshire to access that service as well. We also have a very small contract with Wales and West Utilities. It goes back a ways now. That is to issue gas connection vouchers for their householders who are currently off gas, don't have access to a gas connection, and want to cover some of the cost of joining the gas network. As you'll see from the report, it's very, very small numbers, and we cover the whole of the Wales and West area. So in fact, our staff virtually, I hasten to add, are covering all the way down to Devon and Cornwall. But it is a small income generator to the council, which is useful. It's probably worth just also noting we recognise that obviously gas connections are a time-limited technology, but at the moment they still represent for off-gas properties the most affordable way of getting a connection to affordable heat. The report also highlights the work of Warlag, who is our procured supplier for energy efficiency measures and services. They were procured in 2022. Happy to say it's a mould-based firm. They were successful in that procurement, and that they were the previous contract holder as well. So we've now worked with Warlag for some considerable time. The report highlights the social value that was generated or is being generated rather from that contract, which is currently estimated to be £5.7 million. And that I should point out is in effect free money. It's activity in the area. It's contribution to the economy of the area that we are not paying for. It's not. It's being generated by the contractor themselves. The report particularly highlights the work that Warlag are doing to provide apprenticeships, to provide work experience to young people, to access, to support schools, and to grow spend in the local supply chain. So I just want to bring that to your attention. It was recently celebrated in a visit with Jack Sargent MS, just to recognise the excellent work, the exemplary work that Warlag are doing. And it's a good example of how council spend can really bring an added benefit above the spend itself. I will then hand over to Joe just to talk about the case studies and any other positive notes you want to make.
Yes, thank you for that. It's just to say that with the case studies, we also do a lot of communal events, and we're open to any councillors who want to invite us to go around to your local events. We do warm hubs. We've done events for housing as well as for we do it across tenure as well as for the private sector. We've got excuse me. We have a good working relationship with Nest, with Welsh Water, Warm Wales, CAB. So when we do these events, we can do more than just us putting up a stand. People that can attend it can get a very mixed and detailed help they need with regards to energy advice. And as Niall said, we've employed an energy advice officer because one thing we did notice, obviously, when the energy crisis hit and prices have gone through the roof, is the amount of people that are in fuel poverty at the moment, and the fact that some of the people that we've come across really don't sort of come forward with regards to some of their issues and some of their problems. So we're quite keen on the idea of having the energy advice officer go round, visit the areas, go round to as many places as possible, especially go around to some of the rural areas where people are sort of hidden away a little bit out of sight, and then help these people and give them the right advice, signpost them to any of the additional services that they might do, things like social services and so on. And while we won't do the social services work, we'll point them in the right direction. One of the things we have learned, because one of the lessons learned, is to give people a list of some of the help and assistance they can, so that they don't end up caught in that same trap the next time round 6 months later, so that we can help people by saying, these are the people that you need to speak to. And that's working quite well at the moment. Yeah, so open to any questions.
May I just add one point, Chair? Joe touched on it, but I want to really emphasise, and it picks up the point that Andy Farrow made earlier, that the households who most need us are the ones who are least likely to come to our door. We've worked with households who are living in the most appalling housing conditions in some cases, and who don't necessarily recognise they need any help at all, and don't think they're eligible for any help, and are in some cases too proud to ask for any help at all. And so your role as eyes and ears on the ground is critically important, because there's households out there today who desperately need our help, who could receive that help, but who will not come to us. And so anything you do to help with that is critically important, because there's only so much we can do, through the usual publicity and to reach people. It's actually the direct contact that makes all the difference. It's not the publicity that we would normally do.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Chris Bithell.
Yes, thank you again, Niall, and the team for the report. Again, it's an excellent report. And I recall just some years ago, in my portfolio capacity, I went to visit a gentleman in Sealand, a former steel worker in his 80s, bless him, and his boiler was clapped out, really, basically, and the team managed to get him a new boiler installed and insulation done to the property, and he's absolutely delighted, and he'd been sort of starving to death virtually for months before this, so again, it was a classic example of the excellent work that the team are doing, really, in helping people in that kind of situation. And of course, in the present climate, where we've got concerns about the winter fuel allowance, which have been reduced and so on, this is a very topical issue. And again, I think this is tackling it from the right end. I was looking at the figures last night on Newsnight and what it's going to cost the government, the country, the taxpayers, in continuing to pay winter fuel allowance, which is right and proper. But nevertheless, if measures like this are taken initially, then that will actually reduce some of the costs, ongoing costs for supporting this. And again, make people far happier and comfortable in their own homes, particularly the elderly and the vulnerable. I'm not quite sure really, the situation. I get lots of calls, I'm sure we all do, from people who are asking us about our insulation and so on. And it's not always clear who's on the other end of the phone. I don't think very often it is the council. I think, basically will be trusted by the public. It's obviously, people in the business, contractors and so on, looking for business, and I'm sure they do liaise with the council and so on afterwards. But I think many people are suspicious, including myself, really, as to where they're coming from, and are they bona fide, and are they, in fact, if anything goes wrong with the particular work, you know, what are the comeback? What is the security for that individual if they take them on? Those are concerns that I have. But I think it's an excellent scheme, really, and we should be doing more of this. And it's very welcome to see how much we've done. You know, and again, particularly with our own housing stock, 91% have now had upgrades, really, in the energy certificates and so on for their homes. That's remarkable, really, and very, very welcome. And I'm just wondering how long that lasts before it has to be done again, you know, because again, nothing stands still. And I'm just wondering, you know, we're a few years down the line with these particular certificates need to be revised and so on and upgraded. You know, people tell me, for example, and I have this conversation on the phone, that the insulation cover in my loft isn't thick enough. It looks pretty thick to me. I can't lift the door into the loft. But you know, it's a bit of a deep depth issue, really, for most people to understand and get their heads around. So I'd be welcome for any comments that the officers have regarding those issues. Thank you, Chair.
I'll come in first, thanks, Chair, and then hand over to Joe. Just in terms of cold calling, yes, there are infinite number of companies out there. Either they are installers themselves, or they are, I suppose, lead generators acting on behalf of installing companies. Our advice, and we do issue this advice to households, is take, you know, due care. You know, shop around, make all the checks you possibly can. Sometimes we have been made aware that cold callers have represented they are part of the council. They are associated with the council. That is, you know, 100% untrue in all cases. If we are part of the scheme, the householder will absolutely know we are part of the scheme, because we are extremely clear communicators in those situations. So in general, in private sector housing, if there's a contractor turns up at a door, it is not associated with the council. And you know, we do with the eco scheme, where we have to sign off eligibility. We do have a network of contractors who come to us for that. We do not provide an assurance role for that, so we don't verify all those contractors. They are just ones that come to us for that support, for that connection to the funding. But we do make it clear that if we find that they are cold calling inappropriately, if we find that they are misusing the council's name, then we do take a very dim view on that. So to the point that we would, you know, potentially refuse to work with them if they continue that behaviour. So we do have a little bit of control, but fundamentally, our advice, and I'm sure that of trading standards colleagues, would be, you know, to continue to advise households to be duly careful in those situations. I'll hand over to Joe for the EPC question.
Yes, for the EPCs, they are time limited. So we do run with housing a constant renewals programme. So we have a list of all the council EPCs and the ones that are the properties that have no EPC, the really difficult access ones. So we're chipping away at those slowly but surely, and we have it's roughly 600 properties per year that rolls around that we deal with. So yeah, it's we're still keeping it pretty much around the 90 and slowly but surely improving it. It's anecdotal, really, the fact that we've got a very good figures with regards to that. So the companies that we've dealt with, the companies that are out there that do monitoring of EPCs, and they're all coming back to us and saying, well, we've got one of the highest rates that they're aware of. It can only get better.
Are we in a position to direct people who come to us and wanting this help to a bona fide company or list of companies who are regarded as trustworthy and reliable? Thank you.
We don't have an approved contractor list as such. All the companies are Trustmark registered, so there is a set complaints procedure that they can follow should there be an issue. It tends to work that a lot of companies will apply to do environmental and eco work, but the ones that are sort of more out of town have just applied just on the off chance, and we tend to have a group of maybe 20 or so contractors who do multiple works. So when residents say, well, can you recommend it? What we don't recommend a contractor, we'll give them a contractor list of people who haven't had previous complaints. And then with regards to what Niall said previously about the quality of work, the threat of them, because it's very profitable for them, the threat of us taking them off the contractor list seems to work quite well. So we can chase them and prod them to the point where people go back and they'll sort it out. So far, touch wood, we haven't had anybody thrown off the contractor list because we've managed to persuade, in inverted commas, everybody to go back and sort everything out.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much for that. Councillor Pearce.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you for the report. It's ironic, really, when we look at Section 102 and having to spend your time offering advice and information, assisting families in fuel poverty. Fuel poverty created by the Labour government and Ed Miliband's net zero policies. The highest costs in Europe, the officer mentioned in his talk then, he said they were through the roof, and they are. So that's why we have fuel poverty. It also talks about inadequate heating, and that's not the heating that's not working, that's the heating that's switched off because they were denied their winter fuel payments last year. That won't be coming back. Some respite this year. So let's be clear why we have fuel poverty. We need to look at how people can manage in these situations. I've looked at the case studies and there's some good work there done by officers. But could I ask, how did you pick these cases up? Did someone come to you? Were you referred by someone? Because, you know, there are cases that, you know, you'd think, well, how would they have gone on if you hadn't have intervened? Is it a case of they're assisted with their cost because some of the work would appear on the face of it quite significant, but you've fixed a problem, and that's to be applauded. So if people do have concerns, where is the front desk? You know, we talked before about the getting people into employment, and you have 3 hubs. Do you have the same for this scheme? Where is your front desk? And yeah, I think it's what was said before about press releases, making the information available. Because to be honest, if someone came to me, I perhaps wouldn't know the first point of contact where this was available. And I think that, you know, assisting with cost, I think if they don't have the funding and you don't fully fund it, you just leave elements out that you're not able to support. And I noticed here where quite a number of air source heat pumps have been provided. Now, were all the properties assessed for suitability? Because you'll be aware that not every property is, because I don't think it'd be a good policy to say, oh, here's a tick box, we've fitted all those now, we've fitted what we said we would do. Has every property been assessed and they are suitable? And then will they be checked later to see the benefits of that? Thank you.
Just to come in, I mean, I won't answer the point about fuel poverty in general, other than to say, you know, it is a very real problem in the county. Most of the work that you've heard described in terms of installation of energy efficiency measures is in the council housing stock. Eco4 is the exception, where there's funding there direct to the householder that doesn't come via us directly. We don't install measures in the private sector, sadly, at the moment. We have done in the past. You know, it's a service that's always been very aggressive about finding external funding. Just at this moment in time, there isn't much out there from that perspective. There are other programmes that don't come via us, and as Joe's already highlighted, we work really closely with those other organisations. What we try and provide through the energy efficiency advice is the opportunity to really look at the broad needs of the household and to refer on to other parts of their to try and address other parts of their situation. Just needing energy efficient device is very rarely the only thing that's the issue. We do have other smaller programs that can make a contribution towards improving the quality of the housing, but they are very, fairly few and far between. There's very little external money out there for that at this moment in time. Compared to what it has been at other points. Anything you want to add, Chair?
Yeah, as to where the referrals come from, we don't have a front desk, but as we're working with other bodies, Welsh Water, as a for instance, have their own van. So they go on with these open-sided vans that I'm sure you've seen before, and we piggyback on the back of that. So we'll do some of the communal events in anything from a library to a coffee morning, and then that network that we've got, especially with Nest, because they're already have an established circuit to go around. So we will work alongside them. They will work alongside us. So it's getting the word out as much as we can, really. But there is, though, as you said, there is no front desk as such. As for the air source heat pumps, yes, all the properties are surveyed, and all the properties should be suitable according to the contractor. We don't do backup visits for every property that's had it installed, but if anybody does experience any issues with the running costs or with the system itself, we'll help support them, and then do that chase up. So it isn't a question of the contractor fitting and forgetting, because we will still chase them up for it. What we have found a lot with the air source heat pumps is a lot of it is down to education, because of different methodologies of heating the property and keeping it as a background warmth. A lot of people are switching this system on and off as if it was a traditional gas boiler, or in some cases we've even had people using it as if it was a storage heater's economy 7. So yeah, we will still help people out, but there isn't a requirement or a set program for us to do that follow on.
Okay, do you want to come back?
Just quickly, Councillor Bissell mentioned before about going to see a gentleman in Sealand with an issue. So if we have a similar in any councillor's ward and a constituent wants help, where do we go? We don't have a front desk.
The details are all on the website. We do have numerous amounts of literature, energy advice literature, and some of the schemes that we run. I'm quite happy to give that to any of the councillors if you do it as part of your consultations with the general public. But yeah, we don't have a sort of front-facing desk like at the front of a building. But those contact details are readily available to anybody who wants to use them.
Okay, thank you for that. I think that's something that we maybe look to circulate amongst members. So, okay, Councillor Coggins-Cogan.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to the officers for the report. Apologies to the Chair and Committee. I had to leave momentarily, so I didn't hear all of the sort of verbal report. If you could just briefly go over the mechanisms of the self-funding, because that's, I presume, well, I'm not going to presume actually, so if you could just briefly explain that to me, I'd be very grateful. The EPCs, are you able to say how long they're time limited for? Because I'm aware of a row of properties that are scheduled to have their roofs done, and they've had, since I've been elected in 2022 for the first time, they've had several EPCs per property in anticipation of a roof that's yet to arrive. So I wasn't sure if maybe a contractor is being overly zealous in limiting the term of the EPC, so they sort of do it again. I was interested in the case studies that you provided. Just on a sort of slight tangent, on the second case study, the visually impaired owner-occupier, because further down it says you arrange for 3 electric top-ups from his energy provider. Does that infer that it was a prepayment meter? And if so, because Ofgem discourages prepayment meters for certain sectors of society, a disabled person being included, was part of that service also to advocate on his behalf to have that replaced with a credit meter, you know, if that person wanted it? Or is that something that you do normally? I'm pleased that you have been doing coffee mornings, because there's a wonderful coffee morning in Gwynedd that you will soon learn more about. Because I think what you're saying is incredibly apt, that the people that need this most are the people that don't get it. I represent a rural ward of 5 villages, and I know that the people in those villages, A, they know everyone else's business, and B, there's absolutely no way that they would apply for anything, you know, whether they're entitled to it or not. They, you know, it's just part of the local code. You know, you don't sort of get handouts, even though they've paid for these things with their taxes. You know, this is targeted help. So I think when I shortly invite you to the coffee morning, it would be good, you know, to have that conversation to help them. The Trustmark register. Now, I know with some private operators, they'll knock on the door, say, listen, we can do this for you, blah, 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 blah. And they do that to fill up their books. And then they just cherry pick the most profitable work and leave the other people hanging. I'm sure, you know, I'm already answering the question, but I'm assuming your guys don't do that. Once you've passed a customer to someone and they've been assessed and said, yes, you can have this work, then they actually do the work. They don't just sort of put it on their books as a backup work for when times are lean. And when you mentioned that there is no sort of formal mechanism for checking back on people who have had work done, because I can understand you wouldn't be able to do that in every case, but is there potential for you taking sort of some sort of representative sample of, I don't know how many people you do per year, but of just checking back on a sample of them to see if they're happy with the work, you know, where the council can do better, where they feel as though they can get better communication, etc., just so we've got that sort of, you know, we can keep on continually improving. And I'd like to move the report, Chair, but again, changing it to note and support the progress. Thank you.
I'll start, Chair, if that's all right, and hand over to Joe again, if that's okay. Just in terms of the funding, yes, the service isn't core funded by the council. It delivers services for a variety of bodies, and it charges for those services. So it has a number of service level agreements with the housing revenue account. That forms the bulk of its work and the bulk of its income. So majority of the work of the service is on the council housing stock and improving that stock and working with contract holders and supporting them. As the report also notes, we generate an income from the work we do on Eco4 that Ofgem allows us to charge an administrative fee for processing Eco4 applications. So we do that on behalf of businesses operating within Flintshire, but we also do that under an agreement with Denbighshire County Council as well. So that also generates a small income to the service. And again, as the report notes, we do have a contract with Wales and West Utilities where we offer gas connection vouchers, extremely small numbers. So properties across Wales and West's area, which I say is all of Wales and the West Country, they can apply for a voucher to get them connected for the first time to the gas network, which gives them access to affordable heat if they're particularly on oil or something similar at the moment. So handful of those each year, and again that generates a small income to the service. Just on the Trustmark point, we have Joe's outlined the control that we have over the contractors working on Eco4. They are entirely commercial. So they will bring us their applications for those properties they want to take forwards. We verify solely that that householder is eligible for that funding, and that's the role that Ofgem gives us, and that's our role complete at that point. Having gotten to that point, I would assume that for the most part they will then complete that piece of work, because they can see that there's money attached to it. What happened before it arrived at our door, I have no way of knowing, and how many people they've made promises to and then never brought to us. That's not something, unfortunately, we have any sight on, unfortunately. I'll hand over to Joe for the rest.
Yeah, just to pick up on the on that funding issue. The funding comes from the energy companies, from the utility companies, so they have set targets from government. So it tends to be that they will allocate a proportion of their funding for certain measures to be fitted. So if you have a contractor that does a survey and then says, well, we want to fit air source heat pump and solar panels, if they don't deliver within that set time scale, there is a possibility to come towards the end of the financial year that funding won't be there. So it tends to be that it's in the contractor's best interest to deliver the work as soon as possible, as soon as the approval comes through. We are aware of the fact that there are some contractors who don't deliver probably as quickly as they should do, and we do give them a prod as well as everything else. But as I say, as a general rule of thumb, it's in the contractor's interest to do that. The EPCs, I'm embarrassed to say, I don't know what the timescale is with regards to that. However, if you're looking at social housing and they're replacing a roof, it's unlikely that it would have anything to do with an EPC, because they will issue a new one dependent upon the work that's being done. So they might issue one if there is loft insulation or insulation that's associated with the actual roof itself. Won't necessarily generate an EPC. You'd have to do something else. So, like block off a chimney or something like that to make a difference to the energy efficiency of the property itself. On the point you mentioned with regards to the meter, those top-ups aren't for the normal top-up, the card meters. You can get hardship payments from a lot of the energy companies. It's discretionary on their part, that we can get some of them to do that, to help reduce some people who have got enormous bills, because they've just been running their energy bills just without monitoring it properly, and as you say, because of the fuel poverty issues. That particular example is about us being an advocate. So we will take over the advocacy of the bill holder, and while the bill holder's there in the room, we will phone up the energy company and say, I'm phoning on behalf of Mrs. Jones. She's in trouble because of X, Y, and Z. Here's the situation. Could you do anything for us? And in this particular, that they were quite good in this instance, in as much as they were quite sympathetic with regards to the fact that this visually impaired chap was having such an issue with it, and sorted it out. So yeah, like I say, those 3 electric top-ups were discretionary top-ups that we managed to get out of the energy utility company. It's interesting that you mention rural areas. One of the issues that we've got, and we're open it up for any help that I can get from yourselves as a group, is to get the best use of my officer while they're out there doing the energy advice day, because I don't want somebody to spend half a day in a village hall and nobody turn up. Unfortunately, that has happened. So if we can get that message across and spread it around to several villages to get people to visit one place, that would be ideal for me. And the last thing you mentioned was the sample, to have a look at some of the Flex. We haven't done that, but I think that's actually quite a good idea. I think I'll take up that that suggestion. I think it'd be good to do that and put it in the next report, whatever that is.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Johnson.
Very, very brief, just to say that I do appreciate as cabinet member for social value that is actually included in the report, and it shows the impact of social value on such programmes that the council goes and runs. I was very privileged a couple of weeks ago to go down to Warlock and see what sort of things they were doing. I do think it's probably an interesting comment to say, looking at what was talked about with communities for work beforehand, that there's the way that Warlock, as part of its social value strategy here, has been looking at employing work experience placements, creating apprenticeships and whatever. So sometimes, while agenda writers may look very, very different in what they're going to do, it's nice to see that both agenda item 7 and agenda item 8 are both how as a council, some of the programmes we put out encourage and help people get back into work. And I think sometimes people say, well, about on the communities of work, and we'll go and see what's happening here. I'm just wondering whether members would be interested to see how all like go and work, the social value, and how social value is contributing to the work of the domestic energy team. But thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wakeham.
Thank you, Chair. I was quite pleased when this came up on the agenda because I've been working with a project in my ward, trying to get some solar installed in a building that many of the residents use. And after many months of searching, we were hitting costs that they just couldn't afford. And then I was directed to Shelley Webber, who put me in contact via Gethin to Warlag, and we've got to the structural engineer part of the solar bit, and they've saved us thousands and thousands of pounds. So this is a building that a lot of the community use for free. So I'd just like to say thank you, and keep up the good work, because it is working in places. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the kind words. I'll pass that on to the team. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Councillor Palmer.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. My question probably is in relation more to the solar panels. Where does the energy go that's produced? And is there a capacity for energy storage? Or is, because some of these things create more energy than is being used. If there's no capacity to store the energy, then I think we've missed an opportunity.
At the moment, there's no funding for storage batteries, but yeah, we're aware of them, and we'd like to do that, but it just isn't something that the energy companies are going to fund. The current version of Eco and EcoFlex is due to run out March next year, and one of the things I'm involved in is like an action group via Ofgem, and that is one of the things that's been raised a few times now. So whether that will be in the next version of the EcoFlex, I don't know, but yeah, right at the moment, we can't get funding for it.
Okay, thank you for that. I just had one quick question on the second example on 109 about the meter was running fast, and I just probably, like a million other people, just take it for granted that the meter's the meter, and whatever it says, I submit my meter readings. Is there any checks or anything? How do we know that our meters are accurate?
You can tell by the only real way that you can tell is by a typical average consumer. So if it was yourself and you're in a 3-bed property and that you live on your own, we would expect your energy consumption to be roughly X. If it's considerably more than that, then there is a possibility of the meter being incorrect. It doesn't happen very often, but that's really the only way to do it. If it's running slightly fast, then you'll never pick it up. You'll never know. the only real test that we can do that we know for certain is to whether the meter is registering a charge when it shouldn't be registering anything, where we literally get people to switch everything off, take a meter reading, and then come back in an hour and to see whether there's any charge being registered on the meter. That does occasionally happen as well. Those are really the only tests. The biggest problem, and it's a real big bugbear for me as personally, because it irritates the hell out of me, is the fact that if you want to get your meter charged, because the meters are owned by the energy company themselves, you have to pay for them to go in and for them to do it. So if they go to check your meter and there isn't a problem with it, they charge you. If there is a problem, they'll sort it, which can, yeah, it irritates me, but that's what it's set up to do.
Okay, thank you for that. And no more hands up. So I'll move to the recommendation, which is on page 27, which obviously amended by Councillor Coggins. Members to note and support progress being made to help reduce fuel poverty and improve the well-being and quality of life for residents within the county. Can I have a second for that? Seconded. Can I have a show of hands, all those in favour? That's unanimously carried. Thank you all for your attendance today, and that concludes our meeting. Thank you all very much.